They do not respect you, not because you are unworthy, not because you lack talent, but because you are always available, because you respond, because you care. They see your kindness, and they mistake it for softness. They test your patience, and you reward them with more of it. They give you silence, and you respond with concern. They give you coldness, and you return warmth. You believe this proves your character. To them, it proves your weakness. This is the first truth you must face. People do not evaluate you by your intentions. They evaluate you by your reactions. You were taught to be good, to be open, to be giving, but they were taught to test, to pull, to push, to see what breaks. That is why they overlook you. That is why they speak over you. That is why your loyalty is never enough, because they are not looking for kindness. They are looking for consequence. You have trained them with your forgiveness. You have trained them with your explanations. You have trained them with your constant presence. And now they know. They can ignore your needs and you will remain. They can disrespect you in public and you will explain it away in private. They can take from you and you will hand them more. It is not malice, it is calculation. People do not change until reward turns into risk. And you are still safe to disrespect. If someone disrespects you and nothing changes, you just train them to do it again. Silence. Now, understand this. The world does not care how gentle your heart is. The world responds to leverage. It moves only when something is at stake. Respect is not a request. It is a consequence. It is the shadow of your boundaries, enforced without apology, not in anger, not in drama, but in absence. You want them to see your worth. Stop speaking. Start vanishing. Because when your words fail to shift their behavior, only your silence can teach them the loss they never imagined. You do not need to yell. You do not need to explain. The most feared response is no response, because now they are left alone with their actions. This is what most people never learn. Distance teaches what closeness never could. When you stop arguing, they begin thinking. When you stop explaining, they start remembering. When you stop showing up, they start feeling the weight of what they assumed would always be there. Let them. Withdraw with dignity. Watch who follows. Watch who panics. Watch who stays silent, comfortable in your absence. These are your real lessons, not their words, their behavior in your silence. There is no need for anger. There is no need for revenge, just precision, just understanding. You do not have to fight for a place at the table. You simply stop sitting at tables where your presence is taken for granted. Let your absence speak louder than your presence ever did. That is how respect begins. You ask yourself why they drift away, why they stop replying, why their tone changes once they know you care. The answer is brutal. It is because they have already mapped you. Emotionally, psychologically, strategically, you are a solved equation, and no one respects what they can easily predict. You say too much. You show too soon. You give away the map before the game has begun. They know your patterns. They know you will double text. They know you will forgive. They know that after every silence, you return. And once they know that, the game ends for them. Because there is no risk, no cost, no tension, only control. And control kills curiosity. What you call openness, they experience as exposure. You are exposed before you are understood. You give before they have earned. You commit before they have decided. This is how they lose interest while you are still trying to prove your value. So understand this. Predictability is emotional suicide. If they can predict your words, they will mute them. If they can predict your moves, they will dismiss them. If they can predict your reaction, they will provoke it just to prove they still can. Your predictability is their boredom. Your emotional transparency is their advantage. You must learn to be less readable, not rude, not closed, but composed. When something offends you, do not react. When someone pulls away, do not chase. When you feel disrespected, do not confront immediately. Wait, watch, withdraw. Not out of fear, but out of strategy. Because silence gathers information, distance reveals truth, and time exposes everything. Stop revealing your hand after every move. Stop showing them how much you care. The more you speak, the less they listen. The more you explain, the less they respect. Let your presence raise questions, not provide answers. Let them wonder what you are thinking. Let them guess how you feel. Uncertainty is power. Ambiguity is control. And when people cannot read you, they cannot use you. They do not respect you because you always make yourself known. Always available, always understandable, always seeking closure. But closure is not given by others. It is taken by the one who learns to walk away quietly, decisively, and with finality. They will not respect you until they realize they never truly had you, that your presence was a privilege, that your attention was not a guarantee. So become unreadable. Let silence be your weapon. Let unpredictability be your defense. This is not about cruelty. It is about control. Over yourself, over your patterns, over your emotional economy. You owe them nothing. Not your explanations, not your justifications, not your suffering. Withdraw. Not because you are broken, but because you finally understand the game. Kindness is not weakness, but the world has taught people to treat it that way, especially when it is given freely, without discretion, without conditions, without pause. You believe that by giving more, they will see your value, that if you show them loyalty, patience, compassion, eventually, they will give it back. But this is not how people behave. This is how you were trained to hope. In the real world, kindness without boundaries becomes currency. Cheap, abundant, spent carelessly. They do not cherish it. They consume it. Because you do not make it cost anything. They can cancel plans, and you will still answer the phone. They can go silent for days, and you will still greet them warmly. They can cross your boundaries, and you will still negotiate. You are teaching them that you are for everyone. Always available. Always forgiving. Always understanding. But people only value what they have to earn. They only respect what they could lose. They only stay loyal to what is not freely replaced. This is the brutal reality. People respect limits more than love. They trust boundaries more than warmth. They are drawn not to the open hand, but to the firm presence that says, "This far, no further." The more you try to prove your worth, the more invisible you become. Because effort without demand is not noble, it is forgettable. You must stop overextending. You must stop offering more than they ask for. Stop explaining feelings they never earned. Stop investing in people who have not proven they can hold your trust without violating it. The most powerful thing you can do is stop rewarding behavior that hurts you. Let them experience the cost. Let them sit in your absence. Let them wonder if they went too far. And do not answer that question for them. Do not correct their behavior with words. Let your distance be the mirror. Let your silence deliver the verdict. This is how they learn that you are no longer the one who accepts anything just to keep peace. You must understand, you cannot make people value you by giving more of yourself. You make them value you by giving less access to what they once took for granted. Respect is enforced, not requested, not pleaded for, not explained into existence. It is felt in the shift, when you stop responding the same way, when you stop being always there, when your yes becomes rare, when your attention is no longer guaranteed. That is when they feel it. Not in your tears, not in your apologies, not in your second chances. They feel it when they reach for you and find nothing where you used to be. Not out of bitterness, not out of revenge, but out of wisdom, because you have finally learned. Kindness is sacred, and sacred things are never given to those who cannot see their value. Most people will not tell you what they want from you. They will test you instead. They will pull back just to see if you chase. They will insult you lightly to watch if you defend or collapse. They will ignore your message to measure your patience. They will disrespect you once to confirm how easy it will be to do it again. These are not mistakes. These are probes, signals, small, intentional fractures to see if you hold firm or fall apart. The test is never announced. It is wrapped in silence, hidden in tone, disguised as forgetfulness, delay, sarcasm. It is not what they say. It is what they are silently observing after they say it. And here is the trap. If you react emotionally, they win. If you explain yourself, they collect information. If you try to fix it, they mark you as controllable. Because now they know. They know what bothers you. They know what you will tolerate. They know how far they can push before you break. And once they know this, they will never respect you again. They may use you, they may keep you around, but they will never fear the loss of you, which means they will never value the presence of you. So learn to recognize the test, the delayed reply, the public embarrassment masked as a joke, the absence after intimacy, the sudden change in tone. Do not panic. Do not chase. Do not explain. Withdraw, not in anger, but in cold awareness. Because when you withdraw, the test fails. You do not give them the data they want. You become unreadable. And unreadable people are always respected. Because what cannot be predicted cannot be controlled. When you pass the test, something shifts. You are no longer seen as soft. You are no longer seen as accessible. You become a question they cannot answer, and that makes you powerful. Let them feel that shift. When they test you with disrespect, respond with distance. When they test your boundaries, respond with silence. When they test your tolerance, respond by disappearing from the pattern. No words, no drama, just absence. And if they return, make them work, make them wonder, make them prove that your time is no longer free, that your energy is no longer unlimited, that your forgiveness now has a cost. Because if there is no cost, there is no respect. It is not about playing games. It is about refusing to play theirs. They test you to define the rules. You pass their tests by refusing to play by them. Let that be your power. The more emotionally accessible you are, the easier it is to control you. They raise their voice, you try to calm them. They go cold, you get anxious. They withdraw, you rush in to fix the connection. They say something cruel, you defend yourself. Each reaction tells them where to press next. Each emotional display writes a manual for how to shape your behavior. You think being open makes you human, and yes, it does. But in the wrong hands, that humanity becomes leverage. It becomes a script they can run again and again, knowing exactly where it leads. This is why you must learn emotional neutrality. Not detachment, not numbness. Control. The ability to hold your inner storm without letting it leak into the room. The ability to watch someone provoke you and respond with silence. The ability to walk away, not in rage, but in calm resolve. Because when you react emotionally, they win twice. First, they control the moment. Second, they confirm your weakness. But when you stay composed, you become unreadable, unreachable, untouchable. This is how you shift the balance of power. Do not yell. Do not plead. Do not explain your pain to those who caused it. Let them face a version of you that no longer bleeds in front of them. Let them stand in front of your silence and feel the weight of what they broke without your guidance, without your comfort. It is not silence that hurts them. It is what they imagine within it. And that is where your power grows, in their uncertainty. Because power is not in volume, it is in restraint. Hold your voice. Hold your reaction. Hold your need to be understood. Understand yourself and act accordingly. Let them misinterpret your calm. Let them think you no longer care. Let them wonder if they ever mattered. That wondering is the echo of your absence. You must unlearn the need to correct their view of you. Let them underestimate you. Let them create a false story. That story weakens them, because it blinds them to your real position. Power is not about domination. It is about direction. Yours, quiet, focused, unshaken by those who once had access. The old version of you explained everything. The new version lets outcomes speak. You no longer chase. You no longer perform. You no longer reward. Disrespect with communication. You observe. You adjust. You disappear from dynamics that no longer deserve you. No announcements, no goodbyes, just absence, just silence, just movement. That is emotional strategy. There is a moment, quiet, unannounced, when you stop trying to be liked and start becoming respected. It does not happen through revenge. It does not come through arguments. It begins in silence, and it finishes in distance. You no longer ask why they changed. You no longer explain what hurt you. You no longer beg for clarity, because now you understand. Clarity is not something you ask for. It is something you enforce, through behavior, through withdrawal, through absence. This is the shift. You stop giving access to those who only came for your light. You stop justifying your standards. You stop negotiating your self-worth. And what rises in the silence is not bitterness. It is clarity. You see their games for what they were. You see the tests you once failed. You see the way you trained them not to love you, but to use you. And now, you break the pattern. Without noise, without warning, you stop explaining yourself to people who have already decided not to understand you. You stop showing up for people who only notice your absence. You stop making effort your identity. Because you finally realize it was never about being good enough. It was about being too available, too predictable, too emotionally exposed. You take your power back, piece by piece, not through confrontation, but through calibration. You speak less, you observe more, you withhold reactions, you refine presence, and the world shifts in response. The people who only valued your giving vanish. The ones who relied on your weakness go silent. The ones who tested your limits begin to retreat. Because now, there is a cost. Now your attention is earned. Now your presence is a statement. Now your boundaries speak louder than your words ever did. This is not coldness. This is control. This is the result of finally understanding how the world respects power, not performance. You become someone they cannot provoke, someone they cannot read, someone they cannot reach with the old games. They do not respect you because you used to teach them that you would always come back, always explain, always try. Now you teach through distance, through emotional discipline, through silence. You are no longer training them to disrespect you. You are training yourself to walk away without a sound. That is how the power returns. There is one decision that changes everything. Not a speech, not a warning, a decision. The decision to walk away without permission, without closure, without ceremony, not as an act of rage, but as an act of control. Most people never develop this skill. They stay, they beg, they explain, because walking away feels like losing. But here is the truth. You only lose when you stay where you are not valued. The power of walking away is not in punishing them. It is in proving to yourself that you no longer need to be understood, accepted, or seen. Because the moment you walk away, fully, finally, completely, the game ends, their control ends, their assumptions end, the cycle ends. Not because they changed, but because you did. You no longer argue over crumbs. You no longer lower your standards to feel loved. You no longer offer explanations to people who never listened. You walk, and in that walk you reclaim something they never expected to lose. Access. Access to your time, your thoughts, your energy, your presence, your mind. That is the real loss. Not your words, not your loyalty, but the quiet, total vanishing of your investment. Do not announce it. Do not threaten it. Do not make it performative. Just go. Let them feel the emptiness they created. Let them sit in the silence they once imposed on you. Let them guess if you will ever return. Because in your absence, they finally face their actions, not your forgiveness. This is not revenge. This is evolution. You are not teaching them a lesson. You are teaching yourself a new way of being, where your peace is not negotiated, where your standards are not bent, where your soul is not stretched for people who do not stretch for you. You do not chase closure. You become it. By walking away, you say everything you ever needed to without a single wasted breath. This is not about being cold. This is about being finished. Finished with cycles, finished with over-explaining, finished with emotional self-betrayal. And once you are finished, really finished, you do not go back. Because nothing behind you holds what you are now building within you: peace, clarity, power. And those things are never found in places where you were once disrespected. So, walk, not because you are angry. Walk because you are done. Once you walk away, something inside you begins to shift. You realize how much noise you used to tolerate, how many conversations were traps, how often your kindness was a script others performed against you. Now, there is only silence. No one to perform for, no one to manage, no one to fix. And in that silence, you start building the most dangerous version of yourself. Not violent, not reckless, not loud, still, cold, decisive. You stop responding to emotional bait. You stop seeking validation from the disinterested. You stop participating in patterns that deplete you. Instead, you observe, you calculate, you plan. This is the foundation of unreadability. Not mystery for attention, but ambiguity for protection. They cannot read your next move. They cannot predict your response. They cannot trigger what you no longer expose. Because the new you is a mirror, you reflect back whatever they bring. If they bring respect, they receive presence. If they bring manipulation, they meet silence. If they bring inconsistency, they face distance. You do not speak to correct them. You let their reflection correct itself or not. Either way, you no longer participate. Unreadability is not about hiding. It is about choosing what others are allowed to see. You stop showing your wounds to people who weaponize them. You stop giving your plans to people who use them to block you. You stop sharing your heart with people who see it as leverage. Now, your silence does the talking. They feel the difference. They do not know if you are done or simply watching. They do not know if you care or if you never did. They do not know how to reach you because the doors they used no longer exist. This discomfort is the beginning of their respect. Not because they fear you, but because they can no longer map you. And what they cannot map, they cannot manipulate. You have become the unknown, the unshakable, the force that does not beg, does not chase, does not explain. They will try to test you again. Do not respond. They will try to lure the old version of you back. Do not return. They will say you have changed. Agree, because you have. You have become unreadable. And unreadable people are not easy to use. They are either respected or avoided. Either way, you win. Let them misunderstand you. Let them call you distant, cold, arrogant, selfish. Let them tell others you changed. Let them invent reasons for your silence. Say nothing, because those who speak about your silence were never listening to your words. You do not need to correct their version of the story. You do not need to defend your growth to people who benefited from your confusion. You do not need to prove your heart to those who tested it for sport. Being misunderstood is not a weakness. It is a filter. The right people will feel your silence and lean in with respect. The wrong ones will talk over it and expose themselves. Let them. They think your lack of reaction is ignorance. It is strategy. They think your distance is weakness. It is discipline. They think your silence is emptiness. It is full of everything they never saw when you were speaking. You are no longer in the business of being understood. That was the old version of you, the one who needed validation, the one who explained, the one who waited. This version has changed. Now, you measure people by how they handle confusion, not how they respond to clarity. Because anyone can treat you well when they understand you. Only a few can treat you well when they do not. Let that be your new test. You owe no one access to your inner world. Let your life speak for itself. Let your progress become your punctuation. Let your peace be the loudest proof. You do not answer to rumors. You do not react to opinions. You do not flinch when misunderstood. Why? Because now, your peace costs more than your reputation. Your clarity costs more than their comfort. Your boundaries cost more than their approval. That is how you win. Quietly, thoroughly, permanently. Not through explanation, but through elevation. They said you changed. Good. Let them say it again. Power is not in holding on. It is in letting go completely, cleanly, without hesitation. The world teaches you to keep the door open, to be civil, to give second chances, to never burn bridges. But some bridges must be burned, not in anger, in clarity, because what is behind you does not deserve access to what you are becoming. Finality is power, not the loud goodbye, not the dramatic exit, the quiet, permanent decision that says, "This chapter is closed. I do not return to what disrespected me." That is when your energy stops leaking. That is when your mind becomes focused. That is when people start to realize you were never asking for attention. You were warning them with your presence, but they did not listen. Now they will feel it in the silence that follows. No arguments, no revenge, no reaction, just absence. Because the real lesson is not in what you say, it is in what they lose. Not access to your voice, but to your presence. Not to your time, but to your influence. Not to your help, but to your calm, your insight, your strength. Let them lose that. Let them sit with that. Let them wonder if they ever really knew you, or if they only knew the version that tolerated them. And let them realize, too late, that version is gone. That is the closing note. Not rage, not regret, just reality. You gave. You waited. You warned. You endured. Now you leave. Not because you hate them, because you finally respect yourself.